All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a place. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays. Yeah.
All right, welcome to G.W.R. Live, everybody. Got a big show tonight, joined by my dad, Tony Gonzalez, like normal. And we got special guest, pro wrestler Vinny Vachetti. How's it going, Vinny?
I'm doing well, Chris. How are you?
Doing good.
Yeah, I'm very excited for this interview, Vinny. I'm a big fan of yours, of the work I've got to see you do over the last, since we've been doing these shows. We've been doing these shows now for about a year and a half. And I've got to see you wrestle quite a bit, and I love your work. I think you do. I think you do a fantastic job in the ring. I think you do a fantastic job with the fans, putting them in their place. So I'm excited to talk to you today.
Well, Tony, it's good to be here. I can tell you that we've been trying to schedule this for months on end, and always seems to be something getting in the way. But I am very, very pleased and honored to be on your show today.
Well, let me get started. How long have you been in the wrestling business?
I debuted in May of 2000 for Hoosier Pro Wrestling in Columbus, Indiana, working for Jerry Wilson. And truth be told, I went down there after a show in Anderson. They were renting the ring to somebody else in their company. I cannot remember. But I ran into Dave Dynasty at this thing, and I said, how does one get to be involved? And he said, well, we actually rent the ring to these people, but our station of operation is down in Columbus. So he told me when to be there, and I went down there with what was then known as the Butcher outfit. And I would just go down there for training, you know. And this was me in my 20s. I was actually 20 years old. And I could do a flat-footed moonsault at 20 years old. And, Jerry Wilson's like, you want to be in the ring tonight? And I'm like, yeah. But at that time, I was just barely able to function. You know, I could take a bump and all that, but I could barely able to function. I wrestled Doink the Clown 2000, which was basically Outlaw Jesse Houston in Ronnie Vegas's Doink the Clown outfit. And the match lasted all of about 3 minutes. And by the end of it, I wanted to throw up. My nerves were so high. But he did the whoopee cushion, and he didn't even land on me. He just barely touched me, you know. That was my first match a long, long time ago.
Yeah, I remember that promotion. I used to see it on the internet and stuff, and it closed down, a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago?
Yeah, it got hit with the cancel culture. Yeah.
I knew that was a problem, and I also knew COVID came in, and also I think I heard a lot of wrestling promotions at that time also.
Yeah. COVID was less painful than cancel.
Okay. I understand.
Cancel cultures, you gotta watch out, it'll get you.
Oh, yeah. Let's not get started on that. I've managed to live through it. And it comes down to, I really don't care what you think. I don't, as someone right on my tights, it says 1980, I am a child of the 80s. I came up with, Mel Brooks films. You can't offend us, you just can't do it.
Marcus Fine says, good evening, gentlemen. Kelly Fine says, hi, guys.
Oh, look, it's Marcus searching out for more of his 15 minutes of fame. Yeah, pudgy bastard. Go away.
what got you started in the wrestling business? Was you a fan of pro wrestling when you was a kid, or?
Well, my grandmother, believe it or not, my grandmother was a huge fan. She was from Texas, lived around the Denton area, back in those days. And there's pictures of my aunt serving Carrie Von Erich, a screwdriver, at a restaurant. Um, and my grandmother lived around where the Runnels were from. So she was known down there long before I was ever even thought of. But we lived in Ohio, for God's sakes. And I'll never forget the first time she set me down in her lap and showed me Superstars of Wrestling and his Demolition Axe and Smash, and they're just brutalizing a couple of jobbers. And something in that moment really stuck with me. So we would watch wrestling together, and Saturday night's main event, I would go up to her house on the farm and we'd watch Saturday night's main event, and that's where I got my passion for it. It wasn't, I never got to see my first show many, many years later. We're down in Mississippi. It's Deep South Wrestling. And they were advertising Demolition X, so of course I'm gonna go, and this is after he had left the Fed with the heart conditions and all that. And I went down there to Deep South, and they were very, very kayfabe, very strict and old fashioned, and they weren't going to let the heels talk to the fans. Here I am with the face paint, and I got the sign with the pictures from magazines, and he was like, "Man, I want to meet him." So he said, "Wait till after the everybody leaves. Everybody leaves." So when they got enough people that left that arena, it was the Frank Cochran Center in Meridian, Mississippi. They brought him out, and he's autographed the back of it, and I can see it from here. It's right up there. He autographed the back of it, and I've never let it go. But that was one of my favorite moments. But that all stems from the fact that my grandmother showed me what it meant to them, and I wanted to understand why it meant so much to both them and me. And through watching it over the years, I understood what made me enjoy the business. And that's what I do now, is I give back what was given to me.
Makes perfect sense. I'll tell you, Vinny, something I miss, and you probably do too, since you've been a fan for so long. Also, I'm quite a bit older than you. I'm almost 60 years old. But when you mentioned the wrestling magazines, I mean, they were just fantastic. And I feel sorry for some of the people now who don't have that opportunity to. I mean, I know you've got the internet, and I guess maybe some people may think that's better, but the wrestling magazines was just a huge part of it. I mean, I just loved it, and I'm sorry that they're gone.
Yeah, they were good at hyping. They were super good at hyping. They know to work in the gimmick, well, in black and white paper, making you believe what was going on, telling the backstory long before there was the ability to know, the locker room conversations that were actually happening, and there's a mystique that comes with the golden era. Yeah. And I think that's that one thing we're never going to get back. It's never going to happen. No. But yeah, man, I do. I got stacks of old wrestling magazines. I had, when I was a kid, I had all of my walls covered in pictures and posters and everything else. I mean, I was big in it, 80s and 90s, baby. Ugh.
Yeah, I miss the wrestling magazines. I remember going with my grandpa to the barber shop, and the barber, they'd always have them there, and the barber would always give me one to take home with me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. You're right. That's how you found out stuff about the wrestlers, because you didn't get to hear nothing about them unless you maybe once a week you saw them on TV, and that was about it.
Right. They gave you more detail that when they sat down and had an actual interview, whether that was an interview or not, whether it was written, they gave details that you don't get day to day, or you got more heat for guys who are actually talking about the guy that you're chasing. It's a lost art. It really friggin' is.
Yes.
What was the hardest part? Or real quick, thank Kevin Mitchell. We appreciate you tuning in for the first time. Hope you enjoy this conversation. But What was the hardest, Vinny? What was the hardest part about the business when you first got in it? What was maybe like the hardest thing to learn, or maybe was it getting your name out there? Like, what was the hardest part of breaking through in the wrestling business?
In the early days, I had a really good understanding of psychology of the character. I had Vinny figured out long before I was in the business. But the hardest thing for me was trying to figure out how to put it all together. It took me a lot of years, to figure out how to make it make sense. You could do it, and that's what we spend the beginning of our careers doing is, yeah, you can do it. You can do all kinds of fancy shit, but why? That was the thing that was hardest, was you got to tell yourself, why am I doing this? You can't just do a move or do a hold because you feel like it. My finishing hold, the Baron Breaker, because I stole it from Baron Von King, is about the jaw, the neck, the chest. So you have to work on the guy's head, work on the guy's face, work on the neck, work on the ribs. Because when that knee goes into the jaw and you pull the guy down to the canvas and he eats that whole thing into his rib cage, that was the damage I've been doing the whole match. Now I'm setting the guy up for a submission, you got to work a different body part. But you have to work with what you're working yourself into instead of just doing it for the sake of doing it. You can get slammed on that canvas and fall off that top rope 1,000 times in a match. But did it make sense that the guy kicked you in the face when in truth, you've fallen off that top rope 15 times? Your rib cage, your back, your body is tired, not your face. You feel me?
Yep. Yeah. The moves don't mean nothing if it's not telling the story.
Yes.
And do you have a favorite venue that you've worked, a favorite town or anything like that?
The DCCW shows are always fantastic because the crowd's always so big. That Portland show in Jay County, it's friggin' huge. The Muncie shows we did at the beginning, where the crowds were huge, man. That there's no feel like that. I told Mike King, I said, I never really felt like a professional wrestler until I went to the curtain at DCCW, and that crowd was just bonkers from one side to the other. And I'm like, this is how it's supposed to feel, HPW had a pretty good crowd back in the day. I never got to work for Circle City Wrestling, but I saw pictures where they're stacked from one end to the other, very, very few times where it's like, man, this is a really good place. But personally, for me, any place that's got a bathroom works.
We got a comment from a fan of ours, Drunk. Says, just from this interview alone, I can tell Vinny shoots a hell of a promo.
Oh, man. I can shoot some promos, Jack.
That's for sure.
Mm.
Did
you see the one with me and the beef skull and the axe that I used for Eric Dillinger? Did you see that one?
No, I did not.
Damn it, guys! I can send it to you. It's out there. I should have Scott Storm send it to you. I sent it to him recently. Scotty, if you're listening, that's your job. Go do it. Yeah, that was glorious. I'll never top that. That promo was absolutely the one I did on Jax Morgan. I enjoyed. It was just for me personally. Yeah, it's 10 minutes long, but look at me. I'm not a 30-second friggin' soundbite guy. I'm a conversationalist. We're gonna have a conversation about why Jackson Morgan sucks, and we did. Because here this goes back to the magazines. Is that you got fans who don't go to the Dub every Friday night. You got fans who don't go to DCCW every month. So you have to fill them in. And you can't do that in a minute, 30 seconds. So you have to sit. You have to talk. You have to build the story, build the interest. Bring them into you. Give them something to eat,
Do you have a favorite opponent that you've wrestled?
Oh, we gotta have this conversation now. Come on. Look, there are very few wrestlers in this business that I have not had a good time with in the ring. You're gonna make me call out certain people? Fine. Look, I have a good time. With good God. Right now, my favorite people to work, people like Jordan James, who hit hard, people like Dex Royal, who make me look good. I always enjoyed working with Tommy Gage because the dichotomy, right? Think about this. Here we got the Sicilian Strangler. We got Vinny the Fat Man. We got one of the greatest villains that was ever created. And here we got Tommy Gage with the Punisher t-shirt on long before it was a commonplace thing that we joke about now. But he had this superhero gimmick, okay? And here I have the supervillain gimmick. It doesn't write itself any better than that, okay? So keep in mind that I always beg people for a hero. For the love of God, show me a hero, because the Hulk Hogans are gone, baby. They're gone. You're not going to find anybody. Anybody that's that big wants to be a badass.
Yeah, that's true.
So let me finish here. The Tommy Gage and I, the way this worked was I was this great big 300+ pound monster, and he was this super cut, super lean, super pretty hero. And he could pick me up over his head and toss me like I was nothing. And we legit tried to kill each other. I don't know how many times. One of my favorite stories. We're in a match for NGW, I think. And it was up at Burnettsville, okay? And I'm in this match, and, there's this time period in wrestling when we all had long hair so that we could block people seeing our mouths move, Well, neither one of us had long hair. I'm bald, and he's got skinhead thing going on, and every time he dropped his head, he's not able to see what I'm saying to him, right? So I was just slapped every time he put his head down. I'm about 6-7 slaps in at this point. He grabs me by my chest and he goes, "Vinny, I swear to God, you slap me one more time, I'm going to kill you." And I'm like, "Yes, sir." Man, he was hot at that point. But yeah, we made magic, absolute magic. Our last match at ECCW, where he DVD'd me off the damn top rope and almost killed me. That was glorious. We started that match out with finishes, like you start the match out at this peak, and now you got to chase it. And we did. That crowd never went down. You can't top that. Leave that where it's at. Walk away. But the only other person that I would get in the ring in with today and go toe to toe with was Baron Von Kane. Baron, you guys haven't ever gotten to really witness Baron Von Kane in his prime. All right, this is a guy who's been wrestling longer than I've been alive, for God's sakes. Okay, and Baron is vicious. He's sadistic. He's diabolical, but he's a thinker. He's the only guy that I ever wrestled that when I'm throwing in a punch and I thought it was going to land, and here I am in this damn catch he's got me in, and now I'm in a rest hold, and he's working around to do another submission hold, and I'm like, what the hell? He really, really made me think, and it's not just straight kicking and punching, He made me think, how am I going to get past this guy? Every time I throw something, he catches it. So Baron, I would right now, in the backyard, let's go. I'd throw down with Baron right now. I trust him so much that he was trained by Ric Flair and Buddy Landell how to tape his fingers for blades, right? And he tapes his finger a certain way so that when he slices himself, he can cover it back up and keep anybody else from getting cut, I didn't trust myself to cut myself. So he puts one on this finger and rolls it the other way for me. So every time he punched me in the head, he'd slice me open. Whap, slap, whap, slap. And I'm bleeding down my face. I thought I was gonna die. And after the match was over, and it was gory. After that match was over, I went to the locker room and I patted my face, and there wasn't a scratch on me. I'm like, damn man, I should have let you go farther.
Was there any wrestlers like when you were a kid that maybe inspired your style?
Oh, absolutely. I was a big guy, I've lost over 100 pounds, thank God, trying to keep it off. I was a big guy, so I fell in love with the big wrestlers, and they don't exist anymore, and they don't cut me off. I'm talking about the Giants, the big John Studs, Andre the Giants, the great big beefy farm boys, Hillbilly Jims. These guys do not freaking exist anymore. And if they do, they're playing football or they're, MMA or they're getting on TV because they're huge guys. So they just don't exist. I was big on Vader. You can see from my ring style, I take a lot from Vader. The forearm shots, they're mostly this, but man, you rack that guy's head enough times, he's gonna get discombobulated. I used to use the Vader bomb. I used to come off the second ropes when I was heavy and it meant something, King Kong Bundy, very clear from my personality and my look. I took a lot from him. Mostly because of that size, you learning how to move, watching his footwork. Bam Bam Bigelow, one of the greatest big men that ever graced the ring, and of course the Big Boss Man. I steal plenty from the Big Boss Man. He was one of my favorite characters as a kid. Here's another guy who was super heavy, and then he lost all that weight, just became liquid fast. Yeah. The timing was off for him, but man, he was going to be, if you've ever read the history, he was going to be heavyweight champion. They were lining him up to be the next heavyweight. That's why he dropped all the weight. That's why he got fast. And I think that's when Ric Flair came along and that whole thing got cut. I think that was what cut him off, but yeah, there was an underlying reason why they didn't go with him. But yeah, those guys, Demolition was my first love. I've always wanted to work with Demolition Axe. I'd never gotten the opportunity, and I know he's ancient now, but I'm telling you right now, he hits me one time, I'm bumping 6 times till I get out to the floor, and I'm Shawn Michaels and myself over the railing into the front row. It doesn't matter how old the wrestler is, boys. If you get in that ring today with anybody, a Jim Duggan who's got cancer, he hit me one time, I'm bumping all the way back to the locker room. Okay? You're not wrestling a human. You're wrestling an entity. You're wrestling a character. You have to respect that character. So when Don Basher and I had our last match, before he died, I wrestled him and I bumped my brains out for this guy, right? And I went through the curtain after he beat me, and I looked at everybody who was staring up the monitors, the twins and Dexter, they're all standing there looking at the monitor. I looked at them and I said, how did he look? And they go, and I go, that's all that matters. And I walked away. So these old dogs and these legends, every one of them rides in my head all the time. You watch my wrist tape. I usually have somebody written down on my wrist tape that meant something to me. Usually it's like Austin Fury. I write Rob Kincaid, but once in a while I'll write Earthquake on my wrist tape because I took a lot. The belly-to-belly suplex, from John Tenta. So yeah, all these guys, they're all riding up here. You never know when they're going to come out.
Let's touch a little bit on what you just won here recently, the WCW championship.
Yes, sir. The WCW Outlaw title. It is a legendary piece of work, if I do say so myself. This is my second time I think it's a third time officially, but it's my second time holding it for a period. It means a lot from where it came from. The last title reign I had where I was double champion, that was something special. This one at my age means more than anything, because you don't just get this because the story calls for that guy to have. They put this on people that they trust, people that they know is worth being champion. It's not just something that you get, it's something you earn. And believe you me, I gotta lay my head on the pillow every night and ask myself, am I the best guy in that locker room? And right now, I guarantee you I am.
Yeah, I would say that belt in the state of Indiana is probably the most the biggest one to have right now of all the promotions.
Absolutely. You got now. Let's not undercut the value of other promotions, mind you. There are some promotions out there that I would put weight in as far as value to being a champion. DCCW being one of them. I was their United States champion, longest reigning United States champion. I want that belt back. But when you talk about importance, then let's go down to Madison. Let's go down to Supreme. All right. These guys were connected to the NWA at one point. Eric Draven runs a very tight ship. I like watching his product. It might just be me. You go down to Grindhouse, where Two Tough Tony's at, right? There's another promotion that puts up really good shows, really good workers. So you don't undercut the value of other promotions' titles. However, when it comes to Indiana, when it comes to Indianapolis, when it comes to longevity and being able to say, hey, yeah, I was there and I was actually a champion, WCWO, to have one of those belts on your list of belts, very, very special.
Yeah, I know. Hearing about the history of WCW, a lot of great wrestlers have been there and went through there. So that's what That's why I was saying I think it's a very important belt to have for anybody to get.
Yes, yeah, I'm telling you, people want to downplay the location, to downplay the way it looks. Listen, Heidi Lovelace, Ruby Riott, went through WCWO. I shared the ring with her in a battle royal. I have a very distinct memory of her being in the locker room. Very important people have come through, and people who've gone on to bigger and better things. So just because it's not like glamorous doesn't mean it's not important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the place. We got to first get into it about a year and a half ago, and I wish I could go more but we're about an hour away. But I would if I could, I'd be there every Friday night.
I drive over an hour every Friday night, and it's damn worth it. How many other places in the friggin' world work every single weekend? Zero. Grindhouse does a pretty good job, but they're all the way down there in Evansville, Clarksville, whatever. And people need a place like this. They need it. And it's where the future stars are being built. Dex Royal being built every single time he hits that ring. He's this freaking close. The twins are absolute money. I really don't understand why they're not already up there. But the next generation, the Logan Myers, the Dalton Loves, these guys, the Dutch Boy Platinum, for crying out loud, he and I, you guys watched that match. He and I beat the crap out of each other one night. I lit into him something fierce, because he wanted us to go longer. I feel sorry for his ribs a little bit, but he beat me, but these are the guys that are going to be the next generation, and you're only going to see some of this talent in WCWO.
How's it feel getting to work with some of them? I know you had the chance here lately getting to work with a lot of them younger guys. How does that feel? I mean, I know that has to be rewarding for as long as you've been in the business and you're still working with these guys.
Listen, I'm 42, okay, and I feel like I'm 350 years old. My years of being heavy felt like an eternity. I didn't get to do a whole lot. And there was guys who didn't want to work with me then because I couldn't move. The gimmick always sold, okay? Vinny the Fat Man was guaranteed money, but I couldn't move. And TJ Power says I could. And there's guys that have worked with me who tell you, no, the guy could move. And I could for my size, but I couldn't do all the things that I needed to do for them, to get them over. And now here I am, 20 years, next year it'll be 23 years in the business. And now I am small enough that I can keep up and be launched and sent whichever direction they want to send me with these young guys. And they absolutely love it because, yeah, you're getting all your crap in. Now it's time for me to beat your brains out, and some guys, and I could name names, but I don't think I really need to, but some guys credit me with breaking them in because before they got in the ring with me, it was just talked about that, yeah, you're supposed to actually hit the guy. And it's like, no, let me show you how this is going to play. And then about 3 or 4 rib shots in, they're going, okay, well, now we know we're in a fight. So then the reality sets in. It's like, we're actually in combat. I need to act like I'm in combat. And with me, you can ask pretty much everybody, you don't have to pretend. With me, you're going to get hit. I love the fact that they also come to me and they say, Vinny, I need a match. Vinny, I need a match. You guys, I spent the beginning part of my career never hearing that. Even hearing, we don't need you. And now you got guys who are calling me up and say, Vinny, why don't you come over here and play? Or Vinny, I'm going on a booking in Denver. You want to go too? And by God, I'm going too. So it's finally, the doors are finally opening. And like I joke to JKO all the time that I hit my prime way too late. But I'm trying to enjoy as much of it as I can, not only for me, but for the kids, my kids, to see that Dad do what he do live and in color before they got to watch it on YouTube, and remember what Daddy used to do.
Yeah, that's got to be awesome for them to be able to see that, live. That's cool.
And sometimes Vinny gets involved. I don't know if you realize that when I won the Outlaw title, he was that little boy that was on the stage. I slapped that belt on his chest and pulled him through the curtain because that boy was in tears. He was so proud because he'd watched his dad lose, a dozen times, and he'd get mad every time I'd lose. He was so proud when I won that belt that I could not kayfabe that kid. I just snatched him up and pulled him through the curtain. He was like, man, this is something that's going to stick with me. So I'm going to do that right now. He loves what I do. He still hasn't figured out that it's 100%, not legit. but no, he's a big fan. I think that he's going to be better than I ever was.
That's awesome. Is there anybody that you haven't got to work with that you want to work with?
I want to go back and revisit Nate Matthews. I want to go back and revisit Eric Dillinger. I want to go back and revisit Dale Patricks. I want to go back and revisit these guys Here's one that you're going to like me to say. You never going to thought I was going to hear. You hear this out of my mouth? You ready for this, Chris? I want IK3. You want to know why? I'll tell you why. Let's go back a few years. WCWO, Baron Von Kane had blown his back out, so he's up in the rafters doing the sound. I noticed back then, this is a decade ago or more, and I noticed back then, I says, the old guys aren't coming off these belts, and these young guys have got it. They need to be pushed to the front. And all these guys in the locker room are like, oh, hell no. We don't need to put them guys up front. It's jobbers. All we got them for. We don't need them for nothing. Okay, fine. So I created the Revolution. And it was, admittedly on my end, it was a terrible freaking gimmick. I'm not going to lie. However, I had designed that to grab IK3, another guy that I won't mention because he doesn't deserve to be mentioned, and anybody else that wanted to be part of this faction, basically all young guys, to collect them into a stable and push against the hierarchy. The TJ Powers, the Ichikomo Ueda, whoever was holding the belt down. And I did, for all intents and purposes. While the Revolution itself was a failure as a gimmick, I pushed those two guys out front and made them the limelight. And they're great on their own. They didn't need me. But I was using what I could do to push them out. And they'll admit this to you. But years and years later, and IK3 gets an opportunity, and there's no Vinny. And IK3 gets another opportunity, and there's no Vinny. And I'm like, I just want one, And I'm not ever going to say that I can keep up with IK3. Okay? I'm not going to pretend this for a minute. What I'm saying is, I want one, It'd be nice to have. I wrestled Basher. I wrestled JKO. Why can't I wrestle IK3? It's just my opinion. But Nate Matthews, any day of the week, I love that guy. He is something special. He both as a good person and in the ring. I'm a big fan. And then Eric Dillinger. I think it was the AWR guy in the locker room the other day, and he says, "You really want a piece? You want a piece of Dillinger again?" I said, "Abso-freaking-lutely," because I don't think he's done learning from the gangster.
I'd like to see that.
The original mobster, and he wants to be a gangster. He don't know what gangster is. I haven't beaten it into him yet. So yeah, he wants to fight. He wants to bleed. By God, I'll give you both.
And IK3 is one of them guys that I don't understand. Well, I do understand, but he should be up on the other level. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
That was the biggest crap. It was bullshit that he got canceled. Okay, it's absolute bullshit. He is the future of wrestling. All right. Does he look like Randy Orton? Absolutely not. Can he put together a match that blows your mind? Abso-freaking-lutely.
You was talking about DCCW and that show in Portland. That opened a match with Omen and him. That set the bar for the night. And don't get me wrong, the whole show delivered, but that definitely set the bar for the night, the match they put on.
And that was Mike King. Give credit where credit's due. Mike King booked that. And he booked it that way for a reason. I heard him talking to Jake Oman the other night. And he said, no, the reason why we did that was so you guys could push the rest of the card up. And they did their job, and they did it. That was outstanding. That was outstanding.
Tommy Gage said, "Damn it, I'm late."
Late? I didn't even know you still existed. Tommy friggin' Gage. Listen, if he told me, he called me up and said, "Listen, Vinny, we're going to do it one more time. Let's do this one more time. His kids, my kids, as lumberjacks, and let's go. Let's go until one of us absolutely says I've had enough." But he won't do it because he's, for all that white and black, and the Punisher thing is a big yellow stripe that runs down the center of it. Then I see Tony Jacks down here. Yeah, Tony Jacks is he's brilliant. Okay, Tony Jacks is one of these old guys who, like me and Baron, we're up here. We're super tight up here. The body is giving out. So Tony does multiple different gimmicks, and I used to when I was younger, but he's one that can literally pick one up out of the bag and put it on and become that person, and Baron is too, and he's brilliant. One of these lost relics. So if you ever get a chance to see him wrestle, I mean, when he turned, you guys got to see Justin Grooves.
Yep.
And that's him being him. He's turning it on. But when he was Damian Minister, when he was the Cannibal Clown, when he was CC Vachetti, man, he turns it on in a different way. You got to respect it. So yeah, guys like that, man. We're dropping off left and right, but you get a chance to see these guys work. Go freaking watch them work, because it much like the legends of wrestling, once they're gone, that's it. All you got left is videotape, Jack.
What would be like the first piece of advice you'd give a younger guy that was coming into the business?
Learn how to proofread your.
I knew that was coming.
I talk to every single young guy that I can. They'll give me audience, really. Not everybody wants to talk to the old guys still, but I talk to all of them, and my favorite one is go ahead and let yourself be in this place where you're trying to figure out wrestling. And because when you get to that point where you figured out wrestling and now you're playing with the ingredients and you can feel it, that's where heaven is. It is absolute. It's just, you ask Joey, you ask Baron, when you get to that point, there's nothing like it. You get in that ring, you ain't got to say nothing. Me and Baron are one of those people, we look at each other and go, see you in a minute, and we don't talk about what we're going to do. We go out there and try to kill each other and put together a damn good match. You have to get outside your head. You do. Get your ears open, your eyes open, and get your heart open, because you're going to take damage. I wrestled Hidari Friday night, right? So I personally was very happy with the outcome of that match. I thought it sold well. Joey Venom comes to us, and he's one of the guys who's been around a while and puts in a little bit of time talking to people. Joey Venom, he says to Hidari, you weren't active enough. You weren't hungry enough. When you put the champion down, you didn't get on him. You didn't want that belt bad enough. That drive was not there. And, so you're going to get talked to. You're going to hear some things you may not want to hear, I wrestled a guy not too long ago, and he was so bound up in who he was wrestling, and he didn't want to screw up. He was so stuck in the script that when it, we came time for him to do his bit, he didn't have nothing, and you can't do that. You have to. Oh, I know who it was. I remember who it was now. I ain't gonna say his name, but I said, okay, we're gonna do all this at the beginning, and then I'm gonna cut you off. I'm gonna do some of this, and then it'll be your turn to come out with some new shit. Do some shit nobody's ever seen. And he looks at me and he goes, I've only got the 4 moves. And I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So then we got into him, and now, and again, I'm not going to tell you who it is, but now he's getting talked about and he's making waves. So sometimes it takes tough love, but no, you have to listen. You have to be willing to take criticism, and you got to be willing to do the job. If they want you to look weak and vulnerable, even though you got a belt. Listen, Hulk Hogan spent most of his career with cracked ribs or a bum knee or something going to his neck with Zeus. You know, he's this giant and a superhero, and he looks weak. He looks like he's vulnerable. And what happens? He gets to the pay-per-view after he's lost every single match this month, or 3 months back in the 80s, and then he gets in that main event and he kicks Zeus's ass, and then he goes home. Right? That's how you tell a story. You got to be willing to say, hey, I look like a schmuck for the next month, and they're going to making me look good over here. You have to be willing to use the formula.
I think that's one thing about wrestling now is they try to tell stories too quick sometimes. Yeah. Don't let the story fully get told and build up.
Yeah, that's the big criticism with AEW and also WWE. Even though I think with Triple H in charge, I think he's trying to maybe make the stories a little longer. I loved it back in the old days with Dusty Rhodes and the Horsemen. Them stories never ended. I mean, they could be 4 months together, 2 months apart, and then they're back together feuding again. So I mean, it didn't end.
It didn't matter where they were either, because that feud went from Texas to Georgia to Tennessee to New York. It didn't matter where they were. They're telling this story their entire life. That is the essence of what we do. And you got guys that want to flip sides every other month just because, it makes them look better. No, you got some people who stayed a villain their entire career. You got some people who stayed a face their entire career, and they made their money or made someone else money based off of what they did. The Ted DiBiase's of the world, the Dusty Rhodes, the Abdul the Butchers, these people that carried the torch for future generations, but they all told the same story, and it was worth telling over and over again because, I beat him, or Dusty Rhodes beat Ric Flair, but is Ric Flair ever going to let him get by with that? Absolutely not.
Uh-oh.
Tommy. I swear to God. For a guy who wears a Walmart gear to the ring, I really don't think you need to talk to me, okay? Buys his friggin' clothes off of Amazon. Come on. Tommy Gage, listen, we flipped the script. Used to be he was the little guy throwing everybody around, and I was the big guy. Now he's the big guy throwing everybody around, and I'm the little guy, but it's still the same story. It's the villain and the hero. But if we got in the right circumstance, I could be the hero. He could be the villain. Simply because no one knows who the hell you are. Go home. Go to bed.
Do you have a maybe a couple favorite matches that you've had in your career?
Oh God, yes. Me and Baron Von Kane inside the steel cage at WCWO for the territorial title. Oh my God, man! Let's keep in mind that at the Dub, you don't necessarily get paid, okay? Because it was every Friday night, and they used to be on TV. So your payoff was getting to be on TV. But in truth, the payoff is the experience. That's the freaking truth. You don't get to do this every Friday night and keep a story going, okay? But we wrestled in that cage, and Basher, he pulls us into the locker room, and he says, "Boys, this show's terrible. You need to go out there and save it." And Basher looks at him and goes, "Can we bleed?" He goes, "I don't care what you do. Just save it." We went out there and tried to friggin' kill each other. And this was the first time I pulled out the murder mitt. So the murder mitt is this steel gauntlet, okay? Chainmail. And I pulled it out and I start drilling Baron in the face with it. He's bleeding, right? And I know it hurts, okay? I already hurt people. I know it hurts. When I hit him, I was trying to just a little bit back off of it. And he was leaning into it. Every time I hit him, the blood would just go in every direction. and I'm like, man, that's gotta hurt. So at the end of the match, I got up on. He used to do old school before his back got blown out. So I locked him in old school, and he knew what I was doing. He looked at me, and he's like, no. And I'm like, so I go up the cage, holding on with his steel gauntlet, and I look at him, and I made a fist. He looks at me, and he goes, and here it comes, wham, right in the face. Beat him 1, 2, 3. But yeah, we were both just covered in gore, and we go through the curtain, and we didn't even get off the freaking ramp when we heard Basher wants you in his office. Like, oh God, here we go. So we go in the office. Basher slaps money into our hands, like, boys, you saved the show. And it's like, just doing what we do, Dad. Just doing what we do. God. Here's one you haven't heard in a while, Chris. Kai Faden. Figure that out. The Glitch. Have you ever heard of the Glitch?
I haven't.
It's because he was part of the cancel, but he also left because of COVID, and he left the area. Glitch was a very good worker. Go back and Google him. And I'm putting him over, but not only because he helped design my tights, but because I really enjoy working with him. He was the first match that I had with a younger guy when I lost all my weight, where I went, shit, I can do anything. He was doing the kind of thing. He put me on his shoulders and he pushes me off. He drops to his back. So I'm falling all the way to the canvas. He puts his knees up. I eat him, right? You know, it's like a long range Baron breaker sort of thing. But it was those sort of things. He kicked me in the head one time, and I put my hand up just to kind of cushion the blow. He friggin' kicked me so hard it broke my hand. You know, he had some really interesting wrestling. He was different. He was a masked character, and he could work masked or unmasked. He worked for Bizarro, matter of fact. You know, just a great guy. But if you go back and look up Glitch, Kai Faden against Vinny Vachetti, it happened at DCCW. We had 2 matches that I'm aware of, but the one we did, I think it was at Jay County, but it wasn't the fairgrounds. It was somewhere else. It was just magic for me. The one in Muncie we had, it was the first one we did. It was magic. It just you know, the smaller guy against this tough, rough brawler. He was kind of technical, but a striker at the same time. That one always sticks in my mind as one of my favorites.
Marcus Fine says he has photos of Vinny versus Glitch.
Yes. Yeah, they're out there. I'm telling you, Glitch was super entertaining. It's a shame he's gone. I think he's doing Twitch streams now for gaming. But no, absolutely. Any day of the week he wants to get back in the ring, I'd take a bump for that kid every day.
Tommy Gage said Glitch was entertaining.
I'm telling you. I'm
gonna
lie to you,
Yeah,
right?
check it out.
I'm gonna check it out.
He was. And Trip Cassidy was another guy that I never got to wrestle. Super great guy. Max Sterling. I enjoyed working with Max Sterling. He's the only guy I trust to let me give a Hurricane Rana to, because we were at a training together. This is back when I first lost the weight. I'm trying to figure out what I can do. And I'm doing the rolls with the guys. I'm doing the tiger rolls, you know. I'm keeping up. right? And Tripp even said I was keeping up. And then he had us doing a combination into a Hurricane Rana. This is Vinny Vachetti. Keep in mind in your head, Vinny Vachetti running up to a guy, jumping up, getting the legs around the guy's head, and doing Hurricane Rana. Max Sterling had to power my ass up. And once I was up there, he tucked me and we rolled, and it was the first one I ever did. And the entire audience of people getting trained popped huge. It's like, damn it, we just saw Vinny do his first Hurricane Rana. So it became a thing whenever we're in a match together that we worked into that bit. And sometimes I have him altered, like, let's go into this, and then we'll have you power bombing into the turnbuckle, or like we did at Basher's Memorial. I'm like, I'm gonna go up and do the Hurricane Rana bit, but I want you to dump me over the top rope out of it. And that's what we did, man. What was funny was I'm like, this is the thought I had in the match. And I get to that point, as my back hits the ropes going over, my brain goes, you ain't got a plan to hit the floor, do you, old man? And I go, shit, no, you got one? No. So we went over, my feet hit the floor first. And I'm like, well, that worked out.
Tommy Gage said Max Sterling is very underrated, which
yeah,
I agree with that as well.
Yes.
Unfortunately, Mac has got an injury going on right now, which is why he's out. I seen him the other night, and he's just barely able to function. No, he's very underrated. He needs to be used properly. There's a whole lot of that going around. Being able for a promoter to see a guy and see what his niche is and being able to use it accurately. There's a whole lot of that going around. But no, Mac is one guy that if he didn't have the shoot job, could put the time in to be somebody. He really, really could.
Do you have a favorite match of old school stuff like WWE or NWA that stands out to you? Or a couple matches?
Man, matches that stand out for me, the ones that everybody always talks about it, your Randy Savages and your Ricky Steamboats and your Ric Flairs and your Bret Harts and your Shawn Michaels, man, there's just so many moments. I don't focus on any one match at all. It's people's entire work sometimes that make them who they are. There's a lot of wrestlers in those days, especially at the mid '90s period, where people were getting lost with the transition between the golden age and this new generation. They were getting lost in between. Taker made it out of it, but there were so many guys that could have been bigger than they were that just didn't because of how they were used. I quit watching wrestling when WCW fell because my version of wrestling had died at that point. I liked watching Pillman. I liked watching the Luchadors. I liked watching the Jushin Thunder Liger. I couldn't do any of that stuff, but it was fun to watch. Basic, just brawler. Jim Duggan. Those kind of people, the ones that I just sit there and watch for hours. Ronnie Garvin. If you haven't sit down and watched, the footage of Ronnie Garvin on these NWA that they have on the TV with the WWE Network, if you haven't sit down and watched Ronnie Garvin, you are missing out.
Yes,
because it tells the complete story. When you see him in the early '80s before he went to the Fed, and you see just how tough that guy was. Then when he got to the Fed and he's paired up against Greg Valentine, you understand why, but you also understand the purpose behind it. But watching guys like that is just fun for me. Watching you guys, that just hard hitting, tough. I'm having fun watching Black Bart and Ron Bass. These guys didn't do a whole lot of wrestling, but man, could they fight?
Another one in that category, Bruiser Brody, was one of my favorites. But he could just fight.
Yes, Bruiser Brody. watching early Cactus and Abdul, well, anybody and Abdul the Butcher. What did I watch the other night? It was Superstar Billy Graham and Abdul the Butcher, two guys that I would never in my brain put together, but they were beating on his, I think it was beating on his either his arm or his back. It was his arm because they were doing the $10,000 challenge for the arm wrestling. You know, the original Pythons.
Yeah.
You know, you realize that Hulk Hogan stole a lot of crap from Billy Graham.
Yes, he did.
But you know, Abdullah, you know, and the original Sheik, you know, these guys, the Iron Sheik. I saw a match with God, what is his name? He was the manager for the for Sergeant Slaughter, Adnan, General Adnan.
Yep.
Okay. He was an actual friggin' worker.
Yep.
And it was a decent friggin' match, you know. And these are things that you're not told coming up. You know, these guys that are off to the side. Frenchie Martin. I saw Frenchie Martin wrestle.
Yes.
I never in my wildest imagination thought he was a wrestler.
Another
were
great worker.
classics.
Great worker, Bobby Heenan.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. Oh, Bobby's so much fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of me. When you watch Bobby Heenan, man, that's a lot of me. You got to play that coward villain. Yeah, you're smart, but look at me. I'm nowhere near the size of Dex Royal, but you could beat my ass for 15, 20 minutes, and I'm going to get up and I'm going to stomp you. That's what you got to look out for. And but you know, those coward villains, no one wants to be that anymore. Nobody wants to do that anymore. That's putting in work, that's touching on an emotional level. It's making it believable. You know, so yeah, those guys, man, it's so much fun to watch.
Yep.
Give up on it.
I give up on it. I talk too much.
Yeah. Have you had some matches with Mike King?
No, I have never in my life been in the same ring opposed to Mike King. We were at the DCCW. It was the Bearcat Rumble, and that was the first time I got to put my hands on Mike King, and I drilled him like 3 or 4 times. And then I think he hit me one time, and I'm like, "Really, Mikey? That's what you're gonna do to me one time?" It was nothing. I'm like, "Really?" We actually, the only time that we shared the ring together, we were in GW. And it was me against a guy who looked pretty much like me, which make no sense as to why you would put these other guys in opposite teams, but whatever. And I forgot who the other guy was, but it was me and Mike King against him and some other schmuck. And that was the first time I ever met Mike King or shared the ring with him. And that was pretty much the last time. I would like nothing more in this life than to get in the ring with Mike King and kick him right square in his teeth.
I'd be all for watching you and Mike go at it.
Aren't you guys going to be in the ring together in Colorado?
We are going to Colorado together, and we're going to be in the ring at Battleground Pro, and it's a Battleground Blitz match where there's going to be 6 guys, 2 different teams, 3 different guys, but there's no loyalties. So it kind of reminds you of a scramble, but it's kind of an organized scramble. And you know, Hawkins back to the old multi-man tag team matches where they just tag whoever you feel like, and that's where we're at. But see, this is where you got to play wise old veteran, because there's several guys in that ring who are younger, faster, tougher. Not tougher. No, not tougher than me. But you know, they could take a beating, and then you got me and Mike King. And if we're playing smart chess, then what happens is we let the other guys wear themselves out, and we capitalize on the other 4 guys, and it comes down to me and him. And that's what I want. And I think we can make it happen. But that's yet to be seen. If I get my hands on Mike King, whether we're working together in this match or not, I'm still going to kick him in his teeth.
Tommy Gage says he wants to ref that between you and Mike King.
I would not recommend Tommy Gage reffing anything, because It better be a 1 pinfall match because he can't get back up. Yeah. Heel. Yeah.
Oh man, I know Tommy's gonna write something back here in a minute. But
He's gonna be mad at me. Yeah. Oh my god. So here we are. Where are we at on time?
still got about we can still go about another 20 minutes.
Gee, I told you I wanted to go for hours. I can talk forever, Dad. So we've had. Let's talk about the recent past. We've had a change in appearance for Vincenzo Vachetti. I've had to change my moniker several times because the fat man went away. And I was the kingpin of kingpins during the Revolution era, a little bitty of time. And then we've got the Sicilian Strangler. The Sicilian Strangler has been my favorite version of me. It is the version that retired Tommy Gage, as he likes to point out. I came to fruition as the Sicilian Strangler, but now the $1 Million Mobster, the champion, the kingpin, has returned as Vincenzo Vachetti. So I think the $1 Million Mobster is probably going to be my last moniker before I hang it up. Because this one, I like the look of it. I like the way it feels. And God knows I'm a Penguin fan. You can't tell from looking, right? I mean, it's not like I don't have the gear. So, whether you like it or not, Vinny the Fat Man is never going to go away. Because even though I may put a footnote at the end of my career, I have to lead the next generation. And like the great and powerful Captain Lou Albano, just because I can't kick your teeth in doesn't mean I can't get this guy over here to kick your teeth in for me.
Tommy Gage said, "Who lost more weight, you or Skip Radisson?"
Who? Never heard of the guy. Never heard of him. I lost more because I lost all 450 pounds of that useless piece of garbage.
Mike said, "Sorry, I fell asleep the last 2 hours."
Yeah. Nobody asked Mike King for a damn thing. Just sit back and keep sniffing Rikishi's panties and go through your withdrawal.
Is there some of these younger guys that you may have your eye on that you think can go to the next level that you haven't worked with that you'd like to work with?
Guys that I have not yet worked with. You know, unfortunately, I don't really keep track of too many people that don't show respect to WCWO. There's a lot of guys out there. There's a Tanner Keeler. You might be familiar with him out of New Wave. He reminds me a lot of me. When you watch him work, his character and his attitude, he's very loud. He reminds me a lot of me. He's a guy that I would probably enjoy working with. No, I don't want to wrestle Mike King. No one's ever heard of Mike King. No one cares about Mike King. God, go away. This is my interview. Go away. You know, I was offered a chance to wrestle Mickey Midas at this show down south for Chris Markham And that came in the same weekend as that Denver show. So I had to kind of go do that. Dex Royal will be facing Mickey Midas in my place. I've been booked against Mickey, I think, 3 times now, and all 3 times I've had something else come up. So it's either a cursed match or it's meant to happen at some point. I am willing to work with absolutely everybody, whether I know you or not, because 1, I believe I can do it, but number 2, I believe you can learn from me. There's a lot that I can teach you. There's nobody that I would say, no, I ain't getting in the ring with that. I'm just not doing it.
You got Tommy and Jared going crazy over here in the chat room.
Yeah, those 2 need to get a room. Listen. The ideally, it needs to be me, Mike King, Tommy Gage in one ring inside of a cage. And it needs to be probably elimination style. And it probably needs to be an Iron Man match, if he can make those 2 things work. Because the 3 of us would probably walk out of that ring with saying, no, these boots need to come off. That's as far as we need to go.
I think that should be something you guys do at Thanksgiving.
Yes. I would love to have wrestling back at Thanksgiving, booked by somebody who's not cooking, cutting, or bullshitting and drinking with the guests. So run by somebody who's not us. But I would definitely enjoy seeing that happen at Thanksgiving. Man, those matches. Yes, they were in somebody's backyard. Yes, they looked like hell. But you know what? Those matches were some of the finest, heartfelt wrestling that I'd ever seen. When you get in the ring with somebody who, like Dean Schaefer. Dean Schaefer's a ring announcer for some place that I'm not going to talk about because they don't need to be talked about. But Dean Schaefer's one of the people that I brought into the business because he had the gift of gab, but he had such a passion for professional wrestling. And he's a great ring announcer. He's my favorite ring announcer. But he would get in the ring at Thanksgiving and he would do this. He would do this gimmick. And God help me, I can't think of its name, but man, it was so funny. He had this limp noodle clothesline where he'd come in with this limp little arm, and it was so funny. But you had guys like Dark Lion who would wrestle this guy and put him over, just to get a laugh. It was from the inside. It wasn't worried about what the fans think. It was wrestling from the inside, and it was glorious. But you guys have seen Thanksgiving firsthand. What it's become, and it's perfectly fine the way it is. But yeah, the wrestling in the early years, man, there's no greater feeling in the world.
I'm engaged in LaQuisha Sanchez.
Yes, I was going to say that, but I thought maybe I was wrong. Yeah, man, it was a masked gimmick, and it had a feathered boa, and it was all pink, and it was hilarious. It was so funny. That first Thanksgiving, what we did was we took my fedora. We took ping pong balls, and we wrote everybody's name on a ping pong ball. And I still have mine. And we threw them in the hat, and we pulled out the names, and that's how we built the matches. And honest to God, that was the best freaking Thanksgiving there ever was. I actually got to be in the ring with Jason Maples and pinned the Hurricane. That wasn't my call. That wasn't Tommy Gage's call. That was his call. I got to pin Jason Maples, and that's an honor that I'm not going to ever say that I didn't get. So, say what you want about him 20 years later, but man, I'm telling you, it was a privilege. What the hell? Oh no. I've been on a plane before, Mikey. Shut your face. I've been on a plane before. I just don't fly. I'm like B.A. Baracus. I paid the fool to put me on a plane.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, you got anything else you want to talk about or want to plug or?
Can we plug your mouth? That'd be great.
Hey, I have one more question, real quick, Vinny.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Do you have a rough idea how many more years you're gonna compete?
Like I told Scott Storm the other day, I do not foresee the end of the tracks, but I do see the light at the end of the tunnel. And it could be tomorrow, it could be Friday night. You know, at any point, it could be the end. There's a lot of things that I want to do. The tables match checks off one of my favorite things that I need to do. I'm big on the gimmick matches, not on the glass, but I'm big on the gimmick matches. There's a lot I need to do, and I'm not talking about belts. Belts are an honor. It's a different level of what you want to do with your career. Belts are an honor that you get along the way. I need that Hall of Fame. Some people tell me that I'm a lock. I, being in here, don't believe it for a minute. The TV, I would like to be somewhere close to television. Like one time would be enough for me. I was on TV at WCWO. You know, that's a different world. I'm talking about, you know, big TV. I think that the villain himself, as a guest manager or mastermind, Vinny Vachetti would, and I wouldn't want to give those idiots my rights and my name. Absolutely not. Call me something else, but yeah, being on TV in this persona would be heaven for me. I want to wrestle as many legends as time will allow. Honky Tonk Man was one of my favorite moments in life. Demolition is not done wrestling.
That's true.
Bushwhacker Luke, is it Luke or Butch? I can't remember.
I think it's Luke.
I think it's Luke.
Luke. You know, these guys, the Barbarian and the Warlord. There's a couple of guys.
Yep.
Rikishi, for God's sakes. I wrestled Boogeyman, but that was a legend that was after I quit watching. So in my brain, it didn't have as much meaning as it would to someone like Jordan James, who just got that on not too long ago. But thank you, Kevin. Kevin Mitchell does a lot of my graphics. He helped with my tights, and he helped with the WCW logos. But anyhow,
I like that new WCW logo. By the way,
it is. It's sharp. I like the belt. I like the belt logo, but that one there, yes, very, very, very sharp stuff. Yes, Marcus, there will be a part 2 because I can't stop talking. As soon as we can get Gonzo to not be like, busy with someone like Marcus Stupid Fine. But no, anyway, I want to wrestle as many legends as I can get before they've lost, Boogie Woogie Man. You can't touch him, but man, I would sell for Boogie Woogie Man. I do. I want that opportunity, not because they're a dying breed, but because those guys are the ones that are the reason why I'm here, and the reason why I take what was given to me, what I have, and give it to them, because it has to go on. It can't stop here. It damn sure can't stop with them. It's got to continue with these guys.
Tommy Gage says part 2 should have myself and Mike King in the same room with Vin.
Fine. There's something about the three of us being in a room where we can play off of each other, which would be fine. I don't believe that Tommy Gage can complete a whole sentence, let alone have an interview. You're welcome to spend 5 minutes on TikTok trying to make Tommy Gage make sense, but I wouldn't book him. Yeah.
Kelly Fine says, "Hey, Vinny, VIP sucks."
My fans have turned on me. Have I told you this? My fans have turned on me. Listen, oh, listen. I am one of these people who, I call it the Ric Flair principle. Okay. Ric Flair is a heel. You look at him, he's a heel. Everyone knows he's a heel. Goes out to that ring, standing ovation. Why? Because he's Ric by God Flair. And that's the way I see myself, not as Ric Flair. No, I see myself in that state of mind where I've been around so long, and me personally, you've known me, am a decent human being outside of the ring. My fans love me because of what I do. They understand that what I do is hard, and the fact that I'm good at what I do is that much better. So I have my fans, but here lately I've got to the point that, you know what? They're not worth the baggage anymore. They're not worth it. So the $1 Million Mobster has time for the VIP and nothing else.
All right. Anything else?
No. Get ready
Of course you don't. You ain't got two thoughts between the two of you. This guy over Tony's got to go look at a time capsule from his high school in the 50s before he can come up with a decent friggin' question.
50s.
And this one, Chris is about passed out because he hasn't had his meds. So, yeah, no, the time is over. You go on, take Grandpa to work. I'll sit here and entertain myself.
All right. Well, Vinny, I appreciate you coming on, man. This has been great.
It's been awesome.
Would love to have you back on again when we have a little bit
Round
more time.
2, anytime you can book it, smart guy.
And I'll spell your name right this time.
By God, you better. Vincenzo, Vincenzo. The little boy in the other room is Vinny.
All right. I'll make sure I get it right next time. But no, I appreciate you joining us. I hope everybody enjoyed this conversation. I know I did.
I really did.
Please hit that subscribe button at Gonzo Sports Room on YouTube, at the All Sports All Plays Network, also on YouTube. You can find us on Facebook, Twitch, Instagram, Twitter as well. But for myself, my dad, Tony Gonzalez, and Vincenzo Vachetti, we will see you guys next time.
Everybody have a good night.
All sports, all plays. Yeah. All sports, all plays. All sports, all plays. 365, we making a plays. You talking the game, get you through the days. We're high in the court, the dime in the lane. Variety, topics, living the same. All presentation, sports information. In the airways, taking the nation. All sport, all plays, like working your faces. Grace at the field, so tie the laces. All sports, all plays.